rise, we have the invocation by Pastor Herman Moore. Yes, sir.
As thou, Father in heaven, we come today thanking you for being the God, Father, Savior that you are. We certainly don't take it for granted for the privileges that we share in this country where we can peacefully assemble together. We thank you for those that have been elected by the people and are here today in the council, and that you would empower them with your wisdom from on high as they seek to do what is best for all of us. Give them wisdom from your Holy Spirit. And Lord, we would that you would remember the war-torn countries all around all around the world, especially Israel, Ukraine, and the young people and babies who had nothing to do with any of it, whose lives have been immensely changed, oh God. We pray for them, and they plead and ask for your mercy. But help us to be that city that stands out, God, that one that looks up to you for guidance. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. If you guys would join us in the pledge, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to the Texas flag as well. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please be seated. Okay, coming this morning, we have one proclamation to read. We have Councilman Sherlin who's going to read this, and I think what we're going to do is go ahead and come down there, and we would ask Dr. John Blackwell if you don't mind joining us when we come down.
As this is National Chiropractic Health Month, I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas about 20% of adults in the United States, 1 in 5, experience chronic pain which is lasting more than 3 months. And whereas in the United States, musculoskeletal conditions, a common cause of chronic pain, results in more than 130 million healthcare visits annually, making them the number one reason people visit doctors. Whereas low back pain, with ranks among the most common form of chronic pain, has been one of the leading reasons why people are prescribed opioids, and the number of people worldwide living with back pain is projected to increase by 36% to 843 million over the next 30 years. Whereas according to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, is in 4 patients, 1 in 4 patients who receives prescription opioids long-term for non-cancer pain struggles with addiction. Whereas the American College of Physicians low back pain treatment guidelines promote the use of non-invasive, non-drug approach such as spinal manipulation as a first line of defense against back pain before the use of pain medication and surgery. Whereas the CDC 2022 clinical practice guidelines for prescribing opioids promotes diverse approach and varied pain management solutions, and specifically encourages us to non-opioid, non-pharmacological therapies as first-line treatment against scapular chronic pain. And whereas doctors of chiropractic play a key role in keeping patients manage pain, and lessen their reliance on prescription pain medication with their evidence-based, patient-centered, non-drug approach. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the city of Amarillo, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2023 as National Chiropractic Health Month. And Amarillo officially joins with the American Chiropractic Association as it promotes the non-drug treatment that can help lessen or eliminate the need for riskier potential addictive treatments with its Chronic Relief Restore Resume campaign. Signed by the Mayor Cole Stanley, Josh Kraft, Council Member Place 1, Don Tips, Council Member Place 2, Tom Sheridan, Council Member Place 3, and Les Simpson, Council Member Place 4. And I don't guess Dr. John Blackwell showed up yet?
We don't happen to have another chiropractor in the house that wants to take any and all chiropractor. I think you're okay. We'll just we've proclaimed. So we can give a round of applause to all of our. We apologize to Dr. Blackwell. He couldn't be here. Probably got hung up somewhere. But thank you guys for letting us do that. It's always important to recognize health and wellness in our community. And then thanks, Councilman. I would have screwed up a few of those words. He did really good. You pass that back down to Stephanie. Okay. Thank you, guys. We're going to move forward to item number 6 on announcements on our agenda. Ms. City Secretary, do we have any announcements you need to take care of?
None that I'm aware of this week.
Okay, then we'll move forward into item 7, public comment. Ask Ms. City Secretary to read us into that.
Thank you for participating in today's City Council meeting. Your input and your opinions are important to us, and we are glad that you're here to share them. At each posted meeting, we invite our fellow community members to address City Council regarding posted agenda items or any topics related to city policy. Every speaker today will have 3 minutes to address Council. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a warning beep will sound to alert you that you have 30 seconds left to wrap up your thoughts. We do not have any public hearings today. If you're here to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, please remember that council is limited in how they can communicate with you today. They may ask that the item be put on a future agenda, they may direct you to city staff, or they may respond with a statement of fact. And we have 4 public comment sign-up cards today. So we'll start with Jesse Fremmer. And as Mr. Fremmer makes his way up, on deck will be Philip Nussbaum.
Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Yes, it's good to be here. I'm Jesse Fremmer, 5723 South Milam. I'm here to support the Agenda 4B of the important towards the survival of our freedom of Amarillo citizens. I stand in support of accepting a city resolution of not honoring a federal or state mandate that hampers our freedom to address in individual choice. On number 2, non-consent agendas, I'm concerned about 10C, 10E, 10F, and 10I. I like what the ordinance are saying, and I honor Mr. Valdez as our city marshal, and I hope we'll give him the strength and the teeth to enforce these rules. But I don't know what the words are that are being changed in these ordinances that were proposed, so that will be my curiosity, is getting that information. And my final concern is This doesn't really have anything to do with the city itself, other than the fact that we deal with tiers and we deal with Amarillo College. And our tier communication, we need to have someone that's representative of our city and the history of our city. And I'm recommending that we, as citizens, recognize that a local citizen that was once on this council 6 years ago, Martin Ayer, for the position as president of our Amarillo College. And I'm encouraging our city leaders to look at that effort and try to talk our regents into providing a guy that's been here for 23 years, is familiar with Amarillo, familiar with the Texas Tech. He's familiar with international communications. I provided a bio of his background and his qualifications for your survival, and anybody else that's interested in reading about his bio, I would encourage you to talk to the regents of our college, that would be the person we would choose and cut the costs of going on a search committee through our tax monies. Just go ahead and use a local hero and provide him as our president for college. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Nussbaum. And on deck after Mr. Nussbaum will be Terry King.
Thank you for letting me come see you today, and thank you for having these meetings. I think they're wonderful. I've attended a couple of them, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the country and the city, and I'm just happy to be here today. Okay, my name's Philip Nussbaum, and my family came to this country because it had opportunity, and it still does, and people are still coming here. We came in 1926 to the city of Amarillo to open up the city bus company, okay? And we ran the city bus company from 1926 to 1972. That was one side of my family. The other side of the family came in 26 too. And we ended up opening up a concrete company and a pre-stress company, and we've lived here ever since then. So it's been almost 100 years in Amarillo. And, we love Amarillo, and we have several different businesses here and family here, and I just wanted to say thank you. And other than that, I just wanted to introduce myself. We've got a lot of things on the agenda, and we'll talk again sometime, I hope. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nussbaum. Look forward to working with you, sir.
Okay, Terry King. And on deck will be Dana Havlick. Okay.
I'm Terry King. I am a resident of Amarillo, and thank you for having me here today. I'm to speak about how hard it is to get dangerous buildings torn down in Amarillo. I'm speaking specifically about 1203 and 1205 North Highland. They've been empty since March of 2017. Since then, we've had lots of problems with weeds and homeless people. In October of 21, we started having fires. And in the 2 years since, we've had 20 different fires at these two houses and in the backyards. In May 5th of 2022, they were both condemned. But May 9th of 2023, and we were told it would be 6 to 9 months to get them torn down, we had a fire to the point that we had to evacuate. The middle of the night, grabbed our birds, grabbed our dogs, got out. Your firemen are fabulous. Your police department is amazing. They were able to save our house, but in the meantime, because we're next door, in the meantime, it's an ongoing issue. So there is a glitch in your process of getting things torn down. These houses have asbestos, but I know things can get torn down because there was a tire shop at 27th and Osage that burned, also homeless. What's happening is the homeless people have gone in and they're cooking or trying to stay warm, and they have an accident, or they've told me that they're cleaning up the backyard and they make a big pile of stuff, or there's mental illness with them where they're hanging clothes up and setting them on fire. It's been an ongoing thing. The property at 27th and Osage burned and was cleaned up within just a few weeks. And yet we've gone on for 2 years now with these houses. The neighbor kids are fascinated by them. The roof is going to fall in on 1203, which is the picture you have. 1205 is still mostly intact, but you can get in, and that one's going to burn more as it gets colder and the homeless move in. So the weeds recently got cut down. They were all dried down. It was going to be horrible. So that's a good thing. But we really need help with this property. And I really feel lucky that things have turned out the way they have so far. But when these fires have happened, we haven't had a lot of wind, and the firemen have been there right away, and somebody has spotted it. So I really appreciate your help, and just know there's a problem in the system of getting things taken care of. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. King. I would direct you straight to the back. There is our city marshal, Jacob Diaz. He could give you a little bit more information on those two and tell you where they're at on the list. And then I would ask council to consider, in our working budget moving forward, is this something that we would like staff to bring to us from code enforcement to maybe identify the properties and the cost associated with tearing those down and getting them out of the community so that we can have, better public safety. And so that may be something that council would be willing to entertain, to move some of those monies that we've identified to that area as it goes to one of our priorities. Thank you, ma'am.
Or the cost of the firemen showing that 20 times.
Definitely hits that bottom line, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Havlick.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. Dana Havlick. I do not live in the city. However, I've dedicated a majority of my life to this city, serving the city. Thank you for having me. As I was walking up, getting ready to come up here, I noticed that item number 10-0 is kind of ironic in the positioning here. So these last two items on your agenda are items that I've dedicated the last 10 years fighting for, and I appreciate that so much for you guys. So 10-0, or in the firefighting world, a 10-0 approach is an approach that you make to a scene that may or may not be safe, precarious in nature, in which you stage and you wait until the scene has been cleared. That's kind of what we're seeing here today. We've approached this. It was precarious. We've had numerous battles over the years on this particular issue, in which it started as a simple conversation. Hey, it looks like the law says this. What do you think about that? And it turned into a huge battle, and ultimately the state appellate court ruled in our favor. So you can see the irony in that we've waited. We walked into this thing not knowing what to expect necessarily. We've gone through several city managers discussing this, in which nobody would just sit down and have a simple discussion about the legal aspects of what this presented. And in that, I just want to say thank you for finally injecting a little common sense into this city when it comes to issues like this. And I think, in the future, sitting down and having those conversations could sure save the $500,000 the city has spent on this over the last 10 years. So appreciate you all very much, and thank you for allowing me some time.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. You have something you want to say? No. What I would say, thank you for the compliment, but it's not ours to take. So this goes directly to our interim city manager and his team with our assistant city managers that had been working on this prior to that transition. And you are seeing good city management taking a proactive approach of how can we carry out these visions that council sets, but ultimately it's up to them, and this is where the fruit of that. So I would just tell you, the team's doing that, and we're glad to be a part of it. So thank you. Do we have anyone else, Ms. City Secretary?
No, Mayor, that concludes everyone that's signed up.
Okay. Mrs. Stravato, I would gladly let you come up and speak, but I would like to let you know before you do, we have two discussion items, and we will have, I would say, comment from public if you wanted to speak on either of those two during the discussion. I know it's always a little bit better if you get to contribute that way versus maybe saying something that you don't know what the discussion is going to bring about. Outside of the discussion items where we will engage in a discussion with our bosses, do we have anyone else here that would like to speak on anything else that pertains to city business? Okay, seeing no one, we will go ahead and close public comment and move on with item 8A, review agenda items for regular meeting and attachments. Do we have anyone here that has questions or concerns?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to ask, and Floyd, it might be at you. I don't want to remove anything from consent, but I do have a question about 9M. Favorite topic lately, the Hollywood Road wastewater treatment.
So what is your question?
So, Floyd, I just had a question. We'd met and we kind of talked about this, but I understand this is just, we're removing the sludge, right? That was there's overburden of sludge, and that's been an issue, right, for quite a while.
Yes.
Okay. So why are we just now doing this when this has been a problem and it's been identified earlier? Why are we just now doing this? Because it seems like, we keep getting spills over there. We know that it's not, the plant's not in good shape. The whole facility needs an overhaul, but we knew that this was a big deal months and months ago. So what was the delay in just going in and, just like you're doing here, like what was the delay in that? Why didn't we do that sooner? John, yeah.
So from the original emergency response prior to the flooding, we had identified processes that were reducing sludge over time, understanding that the sludge is a tremendous volume. So we were seeing success in that. Of course, then the flood event changed that. After we saw the flood event, then we saw the ability to deal with that in a manner that we believed would provide the plant to operate appropriately. In that time frame, we have seen discharges into our system that negatively impacted the operation of that plant such that it magnified this problem again. So this is a result of a combination of the operation, the maintenance and operation that we originally had, the flood adding to it, and then we saw a time period where we were improving and we saw things improving. And so we felt like that was not going to create the emergency. Obviously, the constituents that we saw in our system elevated to a point that made that plant not operable. And so it's basically what I'm telling you is what came in the pipes during this time period that has put us back into this position.
So it was a problem before, right? We identified it as a problem before we put things in place to help, and we saw some progress.
Right.
Then the floods came, and then some other issues came that caused problem of imbalance in that thing and created.
And we're working with community members on that issue. We're still looking at the inflow and infiltration component. Any irrigation or rainfall that we see has that same impact that the floods had. So it's a combination of multiple factors. I can't point to one, council member, but there is a significant change in the constituents that are being sent to the plant, and that is being dealt with as best we can, and this provides us the opportunity to be a good partner with our community partners that are helping us do that.
Okay, so once, I'm assuming this will probably get approved, once we do remove this sludge, that improves the condition of that facility dramatically, correct?
They're in combination with the other things that you see on the agenda,
right,
and some other things that you're going to see coming. The replacement of the filter media is one that's not on here, but that will be coming because that's a component of all of this. All of this is about getting the plant from start to finish operating in a manner where we're gaining instead of losing ground. And again, we were gaining ground. We had confidence that things were going to be good. Obviously, if we'd had a rain like we had earlier in the year, that would have set us over this benchmark as well. So the plant will not be at a point of normal operation for some time until we get this. This is a first shot at how much sludge we have to get out, and then we'll reassess, and there may be a need for some more.
Okay. Will this help in the recent overflows and spillages that we've had?
This will have a direct positive impact. Will it prevent all inflows? We don't have a crystal ball to know what's coming down the pipe tomorrow or the next day. But if we maintain normal situations, without heavy rainfalls and inflow, we feel like we'll be successful eliminating the overflows. Now, we are still working on inflow and infiltration, finding and looking for openings and making sure those are closed, whether that's at construction site, homes, or just in operation of our system, manholes in streets, roads, and that. So we still have crews. That is our primary effort, is to what is going in the system and how's it getting there, and evaluating that with best practices.
Okay. So again, back to the original, the reason we didn't do this before is we thought it was manageable. We were in bad shape,
Yes.
but we thought it was manageable, and we were seeing progress.
What we saw, we felt like there was progress to success.
And now at this point, we're just,
With
it's too
the
much.
change in constituents and what we see, volume and or loading of the plant, we now understand that the sludge is still the issue that prevents the flexibility in dealing with that.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay,
So
thank
it's just
you.
a better understanding that this sludge still is at a level that has to be dealt with under this emergency.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anytime. Any other question on any of those, I'll be glad to try to answer.
And is this money that we're approving today, is that part of the 17 million that's in the budget, or is
Yes.
this above and beyond?
No, this is in that. This is funding within what's budgeted, whether it was right before, in last year's budget that we moved under the emergency funding, or the 17 million in this budget.
Okay.
And you'll see many more agenda items as we go.
So I would just say that we did have a discussion over bringing that off of consent, putting it on non-consent. With all of our code adoptions moving forward, we had a pretty heavy non-consent, and so we thought, well, we'll put this on consent, knowing that this is going to become something that we're going to see pretty typically as we spend millions and millions of dollars to try to rehabilitate this facility. So just for our public to hear, it's not a large amount of money that we're trying to bury into a consent agenda. It's just a repeating process of monies that are previously approved being delegated out as needed based on completion of construction out there.
And you'll also see the preliminary planning work and design work coming forward for the permanent solution as we identify that for design and engineering and consulting work.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anything else before we move on to item 8B, council? All good. Okay, we're going to move to item 8B, discussion of a resolution that the city of Odessa put forward a few weeks ago. Mr. City Manager?
Yes, sir. So just wanted to bring this item to the attention of council based on some previous discussions I've had with the mayor. We had a good opportunity to bring this forward, kind of a broad discussion based on our neighbor over in Odessa adopting this recent resolution. So just covering some of the highlights. Just a second. There we go. So up on the screen are some highlights of the resolution that they approved during a September board meeting of their city council. It's not COVID specific, so this is really just any mandate specific that's either from the state or federal level. As far as not enforcing those mandates related to wearing a mask or face covering, confining citizens to their homes, requiring a business to adjust their operations, whether it's their spacing requirements, modified hours of operations, or ceasing operations. It also touches on informed consent and making sure that the individual is able to respond to that before taking any treatment. And then just briefly, I wanted to, on your dais, you have the agenda transmittal memo as well as the minutes. I just wanted to read the summary real briefly, just so the citizens can hear it as well as council. That might help with your discussion today. So the summary stated, the citizens of the state of Texas and the city of Odessa were subjected to injustices in the form of overreaching government-imposed mandates during the pandemic. Unquantifiable damage was done to the citizens of the city of Odessa mentally, emotionally, and financially by the imposition of such overreaching government-imposed mandates. Mandates such as masking mandates violate the free conduct of a citizen should expect to enjoy. Compulsory vaccination mandates imposed by government or business violate a citizen's right to control over their own body. Mandates such as compulsory lockdown mandates imposed by an overreaching government violate a citizen's right to freedom and liberty guaranteed by the constitutions of the United States and the state of Texas. So that just gives you a little insight as to how they drafted the resolution. And then I wanted to touch on just where this discussion could go, a few different options as far as once y'all discuss, is there any interest in having staff working with the legal department to adopt a similar resolution to state where City Council stands on this issue? Would there be any changes that you'd like to see based on what you've seen today? Would City Council be interested in doing something different, maybe taking a stance with an ordinance, which would be kind of the next level up from a resolution on this topic? And then before the discussion, I did want to make you aware of the special session that Governor Abbott issued that started this week. One of the main items that they listed to be considered is a specific one as far as legislation prohibiting COVID-19 vaccine mandates by private employers. So that's a new topic that they'll be taking up this week right now. And then previously in their regular session, there was Senate Bill 29 that was adopted that makes it to where governmental entities cannot implement, order, or otherwise impose a mandate related to face masks to prevent the spread of COVID-19, with some minor exceptions for state-supported living centers, jail facilities, and hospitals or healthcare facilities owned by a governmental entity. So just so y'all are aware that the state has taken some action on this. They're continuing to discuss it, so that might be part of y'all's discussion today on what action the council might want to take, or if we want to give the state a little time to work through their special session, because depending on what they adopt, it might void what City Council adopts if you go the ordinance route. So that's really just a high-level overview for y'all to discuss, and staff is available for any questions or direction. So.
Really appreciate the kind of lead in on that. At this time, I think it's good to just let council speak to this, and then after council has an opportunity to kind of discuss maybe their point of view or the right role of government in what we've come through, then I think it'd be healthy to have a discussion with our citizens in a limited way, and we definitely want to be productive here and run a well-run meeting. But we want to hear what you have to say and what you think. We're not taking action on anything today. However, we hope to be able to direct staff forward. And then after we speak, I will kind of give you a little bit more information that came from Representative Harrison's office. I think he's District 10, and what they did discuss and that they took action on today at the state level. So did you have something there, Councilman Shirley?
Yes, sir. My opinion, I do like this Odessa resolution. And the reason I do is we found out during the COVID outbreak that there was a lot of misinformation that the government was giving us that was not actual true. They kept telling us to follow the science. The science wasn't there to follow. This is not government's place to regulate its citizens. Now, I'm not for if you want to wear a mask and you want to get a shot, go do it. But I don't think anybody's got the right to tell me to do that. I am a free citizen, and the Constitution states we are free. And it's not government's place to dictate to any of its citizens what to do and how to do it. The first time, I think we all complied. I don't think many will comply the next time, because what we're finding out now through the science is that a lot of things they told us to do didn't do any effect whatsoever. They said get a vaccine and you wouldn't get the COVID. Well, I got the vaccine, I got a COVID. Will I do it again? No, I'm not going to do it again. It was another false pretense. Then they said wear a mask for 2 weeks and everything will be fine. Well, what was it, 6 months later or so, we're still wearing masks? I read a deal last night from a lady who lost her job here in town just yesterday because she didn't take the shot. That's not right. I don't care who you are. You should not lose your job because you got a free right to do what you want to do. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on council care to comment?
Hey, y'all doing?
Go ahead.
Mayor, I think just my opinion is, you know, I think we were talking about the right role of government earlier, and that's, in my opinion, that's going to be to protect our freedom and liberties of our citizens. In the city of Amarillo, that's what we were elected to do, and that's kind of where I sit on this issue. I do like a lot of these things that are in this resolution. My opinion would be is see what comes out of the special session and take some time and see what we need to alter within this, and see what the public thinks as well.
Well said, sir.
Yep, I would be in agreement with Councilman Kraft. I think we need to wait and see what the legislature comes out and says, so that we don't, we're not going down a road that we don't need to go down. The things with the legislature, I think it's very limited to COVID-19, and I think that we'd have to be careful with limiting it to that, because there could be another anything, which that's what I appreciate about the Odessa resolution, is it does not limit it to a certain virus, a certain issue, because it could be come down as anything, and other mandates and things be set. I think it's up, again, the right role of government is not to tell a business that they can or cannot open, or that they'd be fined when they choose to do business with someone with a mask or without a mask, or having a shot or not having a shot. That's up to the individual business. Just like it's up to the citizens to decide what they want to do. That's totally up to them. So I'm in full support of us looking at what the legislature is doing and then coming behind it to tailor it for our own citizens.
Real good. Thank you, sir.
Can I add something else?
Yes, sir.
I ain't like y'all wanting to wait, but I would rather send the message, let's lead from the ranks like Odessa took a lead. They're telling the legislature what their citizens want. Instead of them telling us, I would rather send, even if we got to undo it, we undo it, but we're going to send a message that we're willing to step out and lead instead of be sheep in a pen and follow. Just my thought.
Yeah.
I would be open to looking at this as well. I think this is kind of the first I'm seeing of the detail on this. So I've got, I'd want to make sure that whatever we're doing has the effect that we want it to have, not any unintended consequences that we might not be thinking about. So I give us some time to kind of go through this and look at this. But I think in principle, I think this is something that we need to look at. I've got to brush up on how much power does the city actually have. I mean, do we have all this power to be able to do these things? And if we do, if we need to scale it back, then we need to do that. But I have no problems with entertaining something that addresses items that Odessa looked at.
Yeah.
And thank you, Councilman.
I'd say what I like about this is that, to your point, Councilman, is it states that, we're not going to enforce it. If there are mandates put on us, I think local government, we have more authority over our constituents to say those mandates may be out there, but our local law enforcement's not going to enforce them, which I think is great. And I think that that's more the way it should be. And that's where our local government is. You've elected us, all 5 of us up here, where we stand on issues, to say, we believe in a small government, and no overreach. And so we want to lead that way and govern that way for our local city. So I like, because I see what you're saying too, Les, is that we don't want to be how much authority and power, but at the same time it's like we're just not going to they're still going to enforce it. Like there may be those mandates, but they're like, listen, if they tell us to stay in the house and there's people out, they're not going to come and round us up, which I like. So.
So I want to add to our conversation a little bit here in maybe edifying what the state has done. I don't want to feel shorted because the state is taking action, and I commend those representatives and senators that are down there doing that hard work. Lord knows they've been doing it like month in and month out now. That's supposed to be way less than what it is. They're in their 3rd special session at this point. We're losing track of which SB 7 House bill number they are because they name them the same. you got to go to session 1, 2, or 3. And so SB 29 left for me and our staff in my office the question of, okay, this is a very good directive telling us as the authority, as the government, or as the municipality, we cannot take this action. It is inappropriate. It violates that individual's civil liberty. So I can no longer tell my firemen, hey, if you want to keep your job, you have to wear a mask and you have to take a shot. No more than I should tell my firemen, hey, you're not allowed to wear a mask, you're not allowed to take a shot. Because you have firemen on both sides, and you have individuals with their liberties that believe strongly for the vaccine and those that believe strongly against it. And this is going to be a healthy discussion here today that points to this is the right role of government, talking about it and working it out, and what government's main role is that we forget. It's not to manage your budget, it's to protect your civil liberties and your property, and to prevent anyone from harming another and taking a life. So as far as it is up to the taking of a life, I want to have the smallest local limited form of government that I can. So if you run your business and you want all of your employees to take the vaccine and to wear a mask, I think that is your right as a business owner. You just need to be held responsible for that when you don't have any employees. Or you need to be held responsible for that if you are the one that is encouraging or coercing that individual to take that medical treatment and that they have a negative outcome. What we saw with COVID was for the first time we spun that around. And we worked, a government worked through private entities to enforce government policy by giving them immunity, by giving them a shield to stand behind. What SB 29 did was it took away the right for us to do this, but it did not address the private business sector. So the question here today is, I'm an employee of a large company. Am I a slave or am I an employee? Because if that entity can tell me, you will do this, even though it violates your conscience, I will not accept your exemption, or you'll lose your job. You're really saying that because I'm an employee, I'm your slave. And the only way that I can be free again is to stop being your employee. That, in my opinion, is not healthy. That's not a good organization. We don't run business like that. We don't run governments like that. And ultimately, we need individual rights protected more than we need to protect, I'd say, the authority of business. And so we're kind of confounded here. You know, I don't want to become the big government that I hate. So I don't want to go in and tell business what you cannot do. So what we were looking at was a potential ordinance. We're looking at two things. We're looking at a resolution that just says what the city of Odessa said, and we might tweak it or change it a little bit, but for more or less, it serves a good purpose, and I applaud them for taking the lead on that, and the mayor there for leading and the council there for leading. That being said, I need to give you an update on what's called SB 7 now. So third session, SB 7, was heard today and was passed, but then still has to go through the process to become law. And SB 7 says private business shall make no mandate. And so it takes what SB 29 did and it puts it over on the private sector. So it's very COVID specific. It's very COVID vaccine specific. It does not necessarily speak to everything that this resolution does. I would encourage council, after we listen to our constituents, to maybe break this apart into two different things. We could direct staff to move forward with a resolution that just says, look, this is our opinion, these are our values, these are the things that we stand for, this is what we've heard our citizens tell us. Individual rights matter, individual liberties matter, and that's what we stand for. Then I think we should encourage the state to take action on SB 7 and make it law with no exceptions. So as we know, they can water things down there to where they're really of no practical good here at the local level. So we want good, clear, concise direction from the laws that they pass down there. Now, if they don't move on that and they let it die, then we still have the opportunity to maybe put an ordinance out. And I think we could put an ordinance out that just puts it back in the right role of government. We as the city shouldn't tell you as a private business owner what you should or should not do with yourself or your employees. However, we can have consequences, so you can be fined. We can provide a platform for a civil suit. We can provide ways for employees to hold those employers accountable, and I think that is the balancing role of small municipal governments to a certain extent. Now, that's a very slippery slope, and I think we've got to have good discussion, and we need to know exactly where we stand on that, and we want to make sure that there are no unintended consequences for an action like that. So before we open it up for discussion, with that all being said, does council have questions on where we're trying to leave this at for right now? Or further comment? Okay. And we can continue to discuss, but at this time, I would ask, is there anyone here that would like to speak? Mrs. Stravato, I see if you wouldn't mind coming forward.
I was taken aback when I read it, when a city as traditional and conservative as our city is, says it will not enforce any mandates imposed nationally or by the state of Texas. That's pretty arrogant, because the way the sentence is organized, there's a comma after mandates, and it says such as. When you read the sentence without the dependent clauses, it says what I just read. The city will not enforce any mandates imposed nationally or by the state of Texas. That's really going a step too far. Secondly, and that needs to be reworded. And if you're going to be COVID specific, be COVID specific. But this says any mandates. I also think that there is some misunderstanding about public health versus personal health. Do you know the first person in the United States who utilized a public health mandate? It was George Washington, and he made his troops take a smallpox vaccination, or they couldn't stay in the military. Public health initiatives and directives are incredibly important, and they're not just made on whim. And during this past 3 years or so of COVID, I don't know of any mandate that said everybody had to have a shot, because I know lots of people who didn't get a shot. I know many of you all up there didn't get a shot. There was no mandate to get a shot. There was a suggestion, a recommendation, and the same way with masks. Some people wore masks, some people didn't. It wasn't a mandate. It was a recommendation by public health. And I think you really ought to look into and have your staff advise you on the difference between public health and private health. Public health is when your actions affects my health and their health. Personal health is, I don't care if you're not taking your medicine your doctor's advised you to take. I don't care if you don't have surgery that your doctor's advised. I don't care if you don't take the radiation therapy that's has been recommended to you. That's personal health. But I suggest that you reread this sentence. Number two, that you look into the difference between public and private health, and that you re-look at the last 3 years. There were no mandates. And those made by private businesses, I'm just about through, have a lot to do with the businesses, and the legislature excluded places like nursing homes and health care facilities where they can't take the risk of not giving vaccinations to protect the people who are sick. I would really ask you to carefully look into this and to most definitely wait until the legislature gets through. We're not scientists here. Thank you.
Can I say?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I appreciate those comments, definitely. But in reality, there were mandates. We closed churches. We closed businesses. The only business that could stay open were the ones, these big box stores. We closed down mom and pop businesses. We closed church doors. That's not freedom. When I took this office, I swore to the Constitution of the United States. And we all have differences of opinion. I agree with what you said, but in reality, you're trying to reverse what we're saying. It's up to you to make the decision. It's up to me to make my decision. Now, the city, these people have a brain. They can make their choice. It's not up for me. I'm just saying they don't have to follow the rules. I mean, our government did a complete overstep during COVID. And I don't think we need to limit it to COVID. There's people who don't want any other vaccines as well. I mean, we have all these people today coming across our borders, millions at a time. We don't know what they've got. But yet we're letting them in, and then they tell me I need to take a shot. It's just coming out of both sides of your mouth. Thank you for your comments, and I agree. Do you want to say something else?
Nobody's making anybody take a shot.
Okay.
So, well said, Professor. I do appreciate the advisement, and I think there's some wisdom in what you're saying. What we're discussing is the right role of government, and so this is a balancing act, and I feel like we got out of balance. I don't want to do the pendulum effect and go back out of balance the other way. What we want to do is incrementally step towards what is our role as local elected leaders in assisting our state and representing our community in working this back to a right role of government and correct balance that does what we all believe in, protecting individual liberties, rights, and property. And so thank you for your words. Do I have anyone else here that would like to come up to the microphone? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Alan Abraham, resident of Amarillo. I'm struggling with the motto that we're a democracy and a nation of law. And as this resolution was introduced from you to us, it sounded to me like it was trying to be so general that it didn't have any teeth to it at all. As I've heard the conversation, it sounds like it could be really seriously affecting public welfare, which is your job, which is small government, big government's job. So as a nation of law, there are times when it is appropriate for government to step in and protect the individual citizens from each other. And that's part of the balancing act, and I'm glad to hear the moderate language of that kind of government instead of what I would call hyperbole about how government's overstepped and da-da-da. One of my questions, and I came unprepared for this, there are a lot of technical words, and I think Professor has alerted you to the fact that language is all important when you put it down in writing. So let's be careful. What is the enforcement authority differences between a mandate, a resolution, an ordinance, a statute, and what does Congress, federal, call it, an act? Those all have concrete meaning. They're not just you pick you pick the word and throw it at us. If you want to speak your voice for Amarillo as our representatives and say, we don't want this and this, be careful that you don't tie your own hands where you can't enforce something for the good of the community rather than the liberty of the individual. And I don't have an answer. I didn't come prepared, mandate, resolution, so forth. But I will be very disappointed if you tie yourselves in a knot under the rubric of big government, overstepping bounds, controlling business, telling business what to do, blah, blah, blah. I can't think of a business that doesn't need to be put some guardrails around it to keep them from overstepping the health of the general community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Go ahead, sir.
In response, thank you for your comment, sir. Appreciate that. My response is our government, really, Congress never passed a law. We had a CDC and a health person who made these decisions. If Congress had passed a law and told us this, that's a totally different thing because that becomes the law of the land. But what I had was a Dr. Fauci and a CDC who were making decisions that were not based on science. And that's my only response to it. I mean, I don't think we're trying to enforce the Constitution is all we're doing, and it's by freedom. And we may have to come back at some time and undo a resolution. I mean, just because you do one today doesn't mean it's law until we're all gone. We can undo things. Thank you.
Anyone else, counsel? Yes, sir. Mr. Nussbaum.
I think everybody's right. And I think the mayor said it really good, okay? Things got out of balance with COVID. And I remember at my church, we had a meeting, and we said we're going to have to limit the number of people that attend the church. And I remember I got up and said, wait a second, time out. This is the United States of America. What is the government telling me to limit the number of people that go to church? And what is this COVID thing? At the time, we were all scared. We didn't know what it was. And we listened to Dr. Fauci because he's supposed to know. But he said, wear a mask. He said, well, first he said, don't wear a mask. Then he said, wear a mask. And then things we didn't know what the situation is. I think it's also, things can be different. Heaven forbid if you have an Ebola outbreak, and that's a totally different thing than what COVID was. And hopefully we learned a lesson because of COVID that we don't need to take our freedom away. We don't need to take our liberty and justice away. And the government needs to be slower at taking those things away. But still we have to protect the health and welfare of our people. And we have to do the right thing. And I think you guys have all said it real well, and I think the other people have said it real well too.
Mr. Nussbaum, I appreciate you saying that. I would like to bring something back that you said, Alan. Words do matter, and so it's easy to forget. You said you're struggling to live in a democracy. We don't. That's why it's a struggle. We live in a republic. Those words matter. That republic was founded on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That republic was founded on the basis of limiting government, that our rights don't come given to us by the government. Mr. Nussbaum just said that the government should be slower in taking those rights away, as though they had given it to us to begin with. Government can't take my rights away. They didn't give them to me. The Constitution protects me as an individual and a citizen in this country. My rights are God-given, and it's my right to life, and it's my right to liberty, and it's my right to the pursuit of happiness, and you don't have to agree with it. But you have to respect it, and you respect it because it's worked for over 200 years. And so we don't have to have a history lesson here, but we do need reminders. And what we're being asked to do is just volunteer as representatives. and to carry forward your will. And how are we going to do that if we don't do that based on a set of principles? And so I would remind us, it's a republic, and it's different than a democracy. Anyone else here today that would like to come?
Democracy is how we elect officials.
I agree, we have some democratic values.
Shared power of government. That's what a republic is.
If I may real quick, this doesn't directly have to do with the issue, but it does have to do with the discussion of republic versus democracy. Frankly, I'm not sure that I've seen anyone get this completely right other than textbooks, including the gentleman there or what the mayor said. We are both a democracy and a republic. Democracy comes from the Greek, rule of the people. Republic comes from Latin, this public thing. Technically speaking, what has generally been agreed upon by political philosophers is a republic is any form of government that does not have a monarch, which goes to the Roman history of it was established once they overthrew the last king of Rome. So we are a republic. We don't have a king. We're also a democracy. Now, generally, I think what people mean when they say we are not a democracy, they mean that we are not a direct democracy, which is mostly correct. We aren't exactly like the ancient Greek Athenian form where every law was passed by collective votes of every citizen of Athens, except sometimes we do. We have propositional elections, so sometimes we're a direct democracy, sometimes we're a representative democracy. We voted to put y'all in power. That is a form of democracy because it is a rule by the people. If you look at the city charter, the person on top is the people. That is definitionally a democracy. So the idea that we are either a republic or democracy, just as a political philosophy nerd, I don't think that's a correct debate because they aren't mutually exclusive. There are instances where you can have a republic that's not a democracy. You can have democracies that aren't republics. The UK is, for most intents and purposes, a democracy. They have an elected parliament, representative democracy, but yet they're also a monarchy. And in fact, if you look at it, the people who want to overthrow the monarchy, what are they called? Republicans, because that's what a republic is. Republic simply means no monarch. A democracy simply means that the power is vested in the people. And again, if you look at the city charter, people are on top. That doesn't mean we're always direct democracy. For the most part, we are not direct democracy. That just as a political philosophy and science nerd, that just the whole discussion always just aggravates me because I don't think anyone ever gets it right.
We do appreciate your contribution. That's well said, sir. Any other citizens here today that would like to partake in this discussion? Okay, so council, we're going to go ahead and move forward. We could give direction at this time, or we can just call this a healthy discussion. Would anyone care to give direction, or would we be good with a healthy discussion for today? We can probably wait a couple weeks and see what the state legislature arrives at. I'll take input.
Yeah, I say we do that. Wait on the legislature and then bring it back.
Councilman Kraft, I saw you nod your head. Okay, this side.
Could we possibly send to the state legislature saying we support this?
So what we could do is we could resolve, and it's very appropriate, I believe, in how a local government municipality should work. We could resolve to encourage the state to move on SB 7 with no exemptions. And I think that would encourage the state to move forward. Could I ask staff, do you have an opinion on what that would look like for you?
So normally we have a kind of overall document of legislative priorities. I think this would be similar to that. We just do a standalone for this topic if there's consensus to move forward.
Would you do it in the form of a resolution, or is there a more appropriate
Resolution.
way? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Simpson, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm going to have to study more of SB 7 before I determine if I would support a resolution. I have no problem bringing it to us, but my parents told me I should have paid more attention in history class, so I'm regretting falling asleep those few times. But But no, I mean, I've just, to be honest with you, I've got to do my homework more on this issue, and specifically with SB 7. I would not say we wouldn't entertain a resolution to it, but
To use an analogy that goes with you, like hot off the press, this just happened today. So
Yes.
at no dereliction of your studies,
Right.
did you not know SB 7 is drafted?
Got it.
And so we would be directing staff to take SB 7, summarize it, understand it, help us to understand it, and then bring it back with a resolution, and then we could up or down that. And if we didn't like it, then we would have an opportunity to amend it if perhaps it had some wording that didn't go correctly or didn't go far enough.
Right, you could say you support SB 7 in principle, but you'd like to see these things integrated. And we could either prepare just an initial stab at it, and then council could add some of those nuances during the discussion.
I mean, the only thing I would say and add to this is I just think whatever we're doing, and a resolution is one thing, but if we're looking at going further than that, we need to have a lot of thoughtful discussion and consideration on this, because I think this is something that's, what we're talking about is absolutely important but significant, and making sure that we don't rush to anything, but that we give it some thoughtful consideration and hear from our community on this as well.
Agreed. Okay, so I think we're going to leave this at a point of discussion, and we would request that staff would bring an update as soon as possible to each individual council member prior to the October 24th meeting, with the intention of a supporting resolution or a legislative priority.
For action on the 24th.
On the 24th, if it's appropriate and the draft is finalized or it has progressed far enough that we would be able to determine what law would be.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right, thank you, sir. Really appreciate the discussion from our citizens. Item 8C, we are going to discuss city manager recruitment process. And so I would ask Councilman Simpson, would you be willing to take the lead on this, just because we have an interim city manager, and I don't think it's appropriate necessarily for him to maybe present, the direction that council should go. So it's kind of a one-sided conversation at this point, just from us five, that we would like to have in public about the process of selecting, a final city manager, and the process of either having a citizens committee or going to a consultant to go out and search for that, and then be able to decide from internal staff versus, applicants outside of the city hall.
Yeah, I would be. Thank you, Mayor. And on a lighter but still important topic, finding our city manager, I did have some conversation with the mayor about, I think we've got a good team in place. We've kind of solidified that. And, when you look at the city charter, the group that's sitting up here has very limited power and responsibilities. But one of the things that we are responsible for is we only hire 2 employees, the municipal judge and the city manager. And so that's when it comes to the charter, and our government was set up specifically that way, so that it is the city manager, in this case the interim city manager, that's running the day today, and we kind of serve as a board of directors. But it is our job as a board of directors to be able to hire that person. And now that we've gone through the budget and those types of things, I just wanted to bring on the agenda, beginning to look at what type of process that we may want to use, and looking to do that. There's lots of varieties of how different organizations do that, but I do think this is, you could say, the most important thing that we'll do as a mayor and city council is looking at moving forward and doing that. So I've been doing a little bit of homework. There's various organizations out there that help people with that, but I kind of felt that might be getting the cart before the horse a little bit. But I did find a document from the Texas City Managers Association that is, it's about a 50 or 60 page booklet that talks about searching for a city manager, and brings up a lot of topics and those types of things. And as I was looking over it, someone had shared it with me and began looking at it. It just gave me some things to think about. But I just wanted to bring this up as a topic for consideration. I would be more than willing, I guess, to handle it appropriately, maybe to pass that document to the city staff to give to you guys, or we could share it. But as I was reading it, I just think it brings up a lot of topics and thoughtful things that as we want to be just as thoughtful and methodical as this, that it's something that maybe we want to go ahead and begin discussing and talking about what next steps would be like as we're looking to permanently fill the role of city manager. But I did feel like as I was kind of skimming through that document, it talks about a lot of things that I kind of felt, boy, that was good for me to know that. So it's something that if I can share with the others, if you guys would like to look at that and kind of give some thoughts, and then maybe, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts today, but maybe after looking at that, and can share it with the public as well, it's a public document, but then begin to kind of formulating maybe what our game plan may want to look like on moving forward with and what the next steps are. Because I think the good thing about the book is it presents several options, different ways to do things. It doesn't necessarily recommend one over the other. It just gives you some things to think about. So, but again, now that we've gotten kind of through the heat of the budget and those types of things, I just thought maybe it would be a good time to at least bring up the discussion on how we might move forward with this.
Questions on that, Council?
No, I mean, I would like to see that booklet for sure and see what all options are in there. And plus, I mean, Les makes a good point. How we pick our next city manager is going to really set the tone for the future. And, is this something that we're going to look at starting after the first of the year? Kind of like, what's kind of our time frame on this? I guess would be my question.
I would say, and I think, I don't know if there's any kind of predetermined time frame on I would, maybe if we could look at review, I can get this information to you, and you can take a look at it, but maybe even 2 weeks from now, if you have a chance to review it, to then maybe begin talking about what that may look like. Whether we take action now or, there are different examples. I mean, there are times where a mayor and council may take 100% of the search and recruitment and do everything involved in it. There are times where sometimes maybe the council would work with staff to be doing the search. There are times where, the council will outsource the search part of it to do all the types of, the listing of it, oftentimes the benefit of getting an executive search firm is, what I hope would be if we have an outside candidate that we don't want the ones that are looking for a job. They're probably looking for a job for a reason. And I think one of the things the executive search firms help is that they can find people that may not be looking for a job but could be a good fit for us to consider. And that's just the expertise that we don't have and we may not have. So I think those are just a lot of thoughts and questions. So I don't think, taking action to say we're searching, I don't know that exactly when that may be, but I think giving this some thought so that we can kind of be very deliberate in how we're going to move forward in this search would be something that maybe as we're kind of talking through that now, because I think as you kind of look through it, there's just a lot of things to consider even before you get to the quote unquote search process, which is, how are you going to handle it? Who's going to do it? What's the job description look like? What type of candidate do we want to look for? Do we want to get community input on what kind of candidate we should be looking for? So I think as you look at the search process, there's some things that are leading up to, when you actually begin the search to either help you figure out what type of person you're searching for or to help those that may be, helping you, be able to know what that is and getting input from the community along the way. So I think, and you just never know how searches go. I mean, I think I'd want to be in a position where we have somebody in this role, the permanent person, whoever that may be, sooner rather than later. That is not in April of 2025 in the middle of an election, but to provide that stability by being but you just never know when you go through a search. We may be searching for people, and while we say that timetable could be 3 to 6 months, you just never know what may happen with a candidate or candidates, or someone may decide that they don't want their name to be public. They may decide they may get another offer. So I think being deliberate about this, but I think beginning to make progress so we just don't wind up getting in something where it winds up taking a lot longer to do this search. That if we wait longer to start in this initial process, that it puts us way down the road in trying to find somebody permanently.
Understood. I think maybe sharing that document, I don't know how that works. It's a public document, so I think we all have the access to it.
I just emailed it to all of you.
Okay. Perfect. So I think that we start there.
I was just making sure you're paying attention, Andrew. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. First test passed. That's good. Good job. But then maybe calling a work session maybe, and I'm not saying that we need to do that, but to really hash this out, either because it's either going to be out here or it's going to be a public work session that we can actually focus on that and get it done. Doesn't have to be a long one, but and I don't know timing of that, but I think we start with maybe this document so that we are all on the same page and have the options to look at, like you said, the wisdom that many municipalities have already gone through to compile that to see what our options are, and then maybe we can get together in a work session and say, okay, this is what we're thinking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, maybe we can try and look at and doing something that no one's done before. Maybe like some forums for the public to come see. The finalists of the candidates, or whatever it may be. Something that I've never really seen in the city. And I mean, y'all been, no offense, y'all been here longer than I have, so maybe y'all seen that in the past in the city, maybe not, but just something to definitely get the community involved in and let them also decide.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to make a statement on this. My partner over here, I don't know, no offense to anybody out here either, I don't know that I think as elected officials we are elected by you guys. I think involving the public could get kind of messy when we're talking about hiring the one person that y'all elected us to hire, that there's going to be lots of opinions and lots of things. Have no problem with getting input, to say, hey, what would y'all like, and that type of deal, because that person is going to be running the city. But I think it might could get messy, in doing that. And I say that with complete, again, we're your representatives up here. Not to say I hope you can see from what we're doing already, we listen to you every day, whether it's on Facebook or it's a phone call or a text, or we definitely listen. But, and I don't know what's in this document, if other municipalities have done that in the past. I know there was talk about forming a committee, a citizens committee, and that type of deal. And I think that would be something that we would take a hard look at to say, is this something that we want to do, or does that kind of convolute the process?
Yeah, and it does make mention of that. And I think when you go through that, I think what it got to me thinking is there are things that I don't even know that I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
And one of the things I think, and there's some, I'm sure that, as Mr. Firmer said, there can be some debate about, if, how you conduct a search, spending money on it, hiring somebody to be able to do that. And I think that's something that, we'll probably look at and want to consider. Personally, if it's the most important decision that we make, if we have to spend some money to be able to do that, I don't have a problem with that. I also think that just as we've not gone through searching for a city manager, I'd like to have somebody alongside that does that every day and twice on Sunday. Because I think there could be an opportunity. Just they could give us some advice on how to involve the community, things that they see that work really well. Maybe there's some things that don't work well, or those types of things. But I think we just have an opportunity here to to move forward on this, and I think to be able to do that in an exhaustive and thorough way. But I really like the potential of at least considering having some experts walk us along that.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, I think, a couple of things, I think there's so many advantages to having a search in an organization outside just finding the person that you're going to search for. I think some of those include you bring in people that have been in different places, you're going to learn different things of how people have done things differently that we may never have thought about before. Also in doing a search, I think oftentimes, and whether it's just the council or, when you're talking, it gives you a chance to talk about bigger picture things. We're in here talking about wastewater treatment plants and those types of things. But when you're thinking about searching for the executive, you're talking about the future. We're talking about a 2-year window here for us. So I think it does that. And also a lot of times you interview people and you say, wow, that person may not be ready to be a city manager, but boy, we sure would want to have them on our staff serving in another role or something like that. So I think there are lots of values to having a thorough search and at least considering the potential of having somebody that has some expertise to walk us through that to make sure that we're doing it the right way and making sure that we're recruiting the best candidates we can to for us to be able to consider for that job.
After listening to that, Les, I agree with what you said, but who knows better what we need than we do? I can hire a guy from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that thinks he knows it all, but he won't fit in Amarillo, Texas. Mm-hmm. And these are the things I think we just need, like what you're doing with that paper. We need to read it, look at it, and then have these further discussions.
Yeah.
I mean,
I like it. I think it's an opening discussion. I think I'd encourage council to try to compartmentalize this a little bit. Do we want to have a citizens committee or do we not? That's a pretty big step in one direction or another, and it can kind of get you all the way down a road. The pros and cons that we would have, I, for one, probably like a citizens committee. I think that it's good to get different people that have way more experience than we do at this. So I love the guy who's 75 years old and has been the CEO of 3 or 4 different companies and has gone through this before and could bring all of that expertise, but he's also local and he's not getting paid to come and meet. I like the Citizens Committee because it counterbalances that heavy-handed voice of a consultant that, sometimes they've got their presentation and their PowerPoint, and an hour later you just kind of went along with whatever they said. I don't think that we get the best outside of Amarillo because I'm a pretty big believer that we kind of already have the best here. So I would almost feel led to maybe walk down the road of Citizens Committee before we got entangled with a consulting group. And that Citizens Committee could help us decide, do you need the consultant or not? And then once you get that consultant, has the Citizens Committee done their job? And now we have what we need? Or do we need them to continue forward? And it's very functional, and if it becomes dysfunctional, then it served its purpose. I'm not saying we would have a work session, open mic night to tell us all the things you love or hate about the city. That's not going to get us where we're going. I also don't think we need to put up like phrases on the board and come up with a vision statement of like, what are the things you want in a city manager? Well, I think we're all going to have some pretty words. I don't know that any of that's going to get us to go hire someone, so let's have a meeting to get a guy hired, or let's have a meeting to figure out that we've got a guy hired and we've looked and we've done our job and we've got what we need here. And so this is a conversation that's twofold for me. I am going to be the biggest cheerleader for Andrew Freeman and team while he is leading and steering this ship. And at the same time, I am going to be loyal to my taxpayer, and we are going to look long and hard for the absolute best quarterback that we can find. And whatever the process looks like, we started a discussion, and we want to hear what you have to say. But I think we probably needed to just get it out there, and then I think we bring it back, maybe not on the 24th, but in the November meeting, or maybe on the 24th. Maybe Councilman Simpson's ready to move, and we can read the documents and kind of learn. But what we need from this council is let's chart a path of what we think best represents Amarillo in citizen committee, no citizen committee, consultant, no consultant. And then let's come up with a good path forward, and then maybe we can start mapping out what does that look like by December, January, February, and then, how do we all feel about it? I'm going to ask if that's kind of down the line of where you want to go.
I think, I think that would be fine. I think maybe we have it on the agenda for the 24th if we want to talk about it, if we're not ready to do that. But I think just giving it, that give us a couple more weeks to be able to look at that, think about it, and then we've got it on the agenda for the 24th. If we're not ready to discuss it at that point, then obviously we can move it down. But I think at least maybe having it on there for the 24th might be a good idea.
And we only have one scheduled meeting in November, one scheduled in December. So normally we're having 2 meetings per month, but because of those 2 holidays, we've got just the 2 to fulfill the year. So I'm not saying we couldn't call a meeting for that, and not saying I wouldn't have a work session. Just don't think it's as productive right off the bat to just kind of stir it up. So I'd rather have some good direction from council and advisement from staff before we move forward. Council, do you guys feel comfortable leaving this here as a discussion today?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All good? Okay. I'll tell you guys, y'all are going to have plenty of time to weigh in on all this, so not necessarily asking anybody to come up and speak on this one item just because it's a long process. We're going to get to hear what you have to say. Moving on to item 8D, request for future agenda items.
I have nothing.
Well, two things I do want to say is thank you for putting the rolling agenda out, and that's up. Where can people find that? I know you sent me I think you sent us a link, but is it on the homepage of the city website, or where can that be located?
Let me get this up on the other screen, Councilmember Simpson, and I'll walk you through how to get to it real quick.
Okay, because I think, and I don't know if anybody else is, I think some of us have shared it on social media, but at the wishes of the mayor and council, staff has begun putting agenda items out there, a rolling agenda for items that will come up in our meetings. I think there's items on there for the 24th, the 12th that are up there. I hear staff really likes this, so but I appreciate the hard work that's going into that, because I think just, we've had some issues today that are on the agenda that we're seeing for the first time, and I think, the thing that I was just concerned about is items where we're only seeing it on the agenda one time and we take action that one time that's on there. So if we can get this out on the rolling agenda before we take action on it, it just gives us a chance to get a heads up and the community a heads up. But go ahead.
And just sharing this as an announcement, if you go to amarillo.gov and under City Hall, go to Mayor and Council Members. The first thing that you will see on this webpage now on this site is our rolling agenda planner. And if you pull this up, then you'll see a list of items. So this current one that's out there right now is October 24th and our November 14th meeting. I'm just scrolling through this so that everyone can see. But that's how you'll get to it. From Amarillo.gov, City Hall, Mayor and Council Members.
Okay. Thank you.
So I appreciate the City Secretary sharing that as an announcement, and for Councilman Simpson requesting that for a future agenda item if needed. So if staff gets a bunch of requests from the public that they can't find this or locate it, then it would be something we could put on a future agenda of maybe just a orientation walkthrough of what we're doing there, making sure everybody's hearing what we're saying.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I do have one item that I'd like to put on the future agenda, and if there's room on the 24th, it's not a time sensitive, but I've had a lot of questions of people or hearing people discuss police response to automobile accidents, and when there are reports filed, when there's not reports filed, those types of things. And I think if we could get some, maybe at a time at a future meeting, I'd just like to get clarity on exactly what our policies are. If citizens want to have a police officer there to file a report, I know Councilmember Tips may experience this every now and then in his business when, you have, people that are trying to, to resolve insurance claims and those types of things. But I just like to make sure that I'm up to speed on what our policies are, and the community is up to speed as well on those policies and why we have those policies in place.
Absolutely. Yeah, we would have that ready to go in pretty short time frame, so it could be next meeting or November.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you.
Be great. Thank you. Anything further? Future request items?
Sure.
Okay. Moving on to our consent agenda, I would ask, does council have anything on the consent agenda that they would like pulled off? Okay. As presented, would ask for a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item passes with a 5-0 vote. I am going to say 4:30. We have 16 items on our non-consent. So quite a bit of work to do. Would like to take a 10-minute recess, let everybody stretch your legs, come back, get comfortable. We will try to push through this all the way to the end when we come back. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and call ourselves back to order. Appreciate you guys giving us an opportunity to take a short recess there and get a few things caught up. We are moving into our non-consent agenda, and I think we're going to go ahead and take one item out of order, but we're going to start with item 10A. Do we have Michael Kashuba here? There he is. If you don't mind giving us kind of a brief overview on what we're doing here, and then good to go.
Absolutely. Mayor and Council, Michael Kashuba, Director of Parks and Recreation. The item before you today is an amendment to a lease agreement that we entered into with the Texas Panhandle Youth Sports Foundation. That original lease was approved by Council on January 31st of 23. It's a 10-year lease with an automatic 5-year renewal. And essentially the properties that were included at the time were the Rick Klein Baseball Complex. There's an option property north of the complex itself for potential development, and then the Southwest Softball Complex at John Stiff Park. So the general breakdown, Texas Panhandle Youth Sports Foundation was responsible for the landscape maintenance, the field preparation, trash cleanup, field improvements, cleaning of the concession stand, general maintenance of heating and air, plumbing, and things like that. The city was responsible for some larger issues, so if there was mainline breaks, electrical issues, playground, and those types of things. So this was an agreement we entered into. We've had some recent challenges out at John Stiff Park, and because of that, the Texas Panhandle Youth Sports Foundation has asked to remove John Stiff, the Southwest Complex, from the lease. So they would still retain Rick Klein Baseball Complex and also the lease option property, but at this time we've asked to remove that piece from the lease. So we have Rob Woods, the Executive Director from Texas Panhandle Youth Sports Foundation, and also Tony Freeman, who's an Executive Board Member here, if you have any questions for either myself or for them.
I would like to know why they're wanting to leave Southwest John Stiff.
I'll let them address it, but I think one of the main issues is safety. We've had a lot of issues in that park this summer with vandalism, break-ins, but I'd be happy to let them speak as well.
So in other words, we're not able to take care of our parks safely? Is that where the original problem is?
We've had some issues. This summer we had Southwest Pool broken into multiple times. We've had multiple vandalisms at that complex specifically, where individuals have tried to ram through the gates of the complex. That doesn't include break-ins of the actual concession stand and other activities. So it's been an issue this summer. We've worked with them to try to come up with some solutions, but at this point they've requested that be removed from the lease.
I mean, I'm not opposed to them wanting, I'm just wondering the reasons that we weren't able to do what they needed us to do as a city. I mean, if the baseball having problem, citizens got to be having the same type of problems. And if we got a problem out there, we need to find a solution and get it fixed. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Thank you for coming forward, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm Tony Freeman. I'm on the Executive Board for the Texas Panhandle Youth Sports Foundation. This is Rob Woods. Rob's our Executive Director. We entered into the contract with the city in good faith. We've, at Rick Klein, we've invested, I'm going to say, a little over $100,000 in improvements in the last year. And so we really take great pride in what we're doing there. John Stiff's been a little bit different story. We've got a lot of people that are a little reluctant to go out there. It's not safe. There's a lot of break-ins. In the summer, there's probably 1 or 2 nights a week that they don't, probably kids or whoever, crawl the fence, get up in that scoring area, and the vandalism's pretty scary out there. And so we just kind of feel like that's probably not something we want to continue with if we can amend the contract in that way. Now, on the other hand, we need baseball fields because our baseball program, we've had 2,500 kids playing last spring and summer, and we have almost 1,500 this fall. So we're going to need to continue to rent those fields on a need-to basis. but we just feel like with all the vandalism and the muggings and the pistol whippings that have gone out there, it's just not fair to our parents and kids. Rob, you want to add anything to that?
Well, yeah, I do. And Tony's right with the fields. He's a little taller than me, or shorter. Anyway, the field situation, we need, and we're so appreciative of the City of Amarillo fields. Without them, obviously, we wouldn't have kids playing baseball. And now, as a foundation, we have, Tony's number was right, except we didn't include the fast pitch group in there. We've got the girls as well. So we're kind of servicing our boys and our girls, any kid that swings a bat. So we need a lot of fields. We're currently using on any given night in the spring 16 to 20 fields. That's Amarillo and Canyon. So we need the fields. We're going to continue to use these other city fields, just more on a rental basis. I think the problem at John Stiff, of course, that's been a problem for a while. I'm going to tell you, this isn't this spring or this summer. This has been going on for a while. There's a lot of underage drinking. There's a lot of problems in that park. And I know the police department's done a great job of trying to. I'll tell you one quick situation. We had the Parks Department put some barriers up to try to, just trying to figure some things out. We had a lot of break-ins going on. We were getting hit every week. They were coming in, and Tony mentioned the upstairs score hut area. They were taking a trash can, moving it over, and then jumping up on top and going in those windows and partying. I mean, there's beer cans and all kinds of stuff. And so, the Parks Department thought, well, maybe we can kind of block some of this stuff off and maybe try to figure this all out and get a handle on it. Well, then they just started pushing these. We literally watched them just hit those barricades and push them out of the way and go into the parking lot that they were told not to with the barricades. And so we called the police one night, and within, I'm telling you, you talked about response times earlier and all that, less than 5 minutes, eight patrol cars were in that park, getting those kids out, telling them, hey, those barricades are here for a reason. I don't know what they was telling them. I was watching them from a distance. But what I watched was pure, mid-50s, I would have never done what those kids did to our police officers and the way they treated them and their response to the police officers telling them to get out of the parking lot. So there's been a problem in that park. We've been using that park for 22 years for our games. And I can tell you over that amount of time, this isn't the first time we've seen those issues in that one little corner of that park there. So as far as an organization, we're still going to need to use the city fields. I think that when the Parks Department was managing that complex, they were out there every day. Their trucks were in and out of that complex, had a big City of Amarillo on the door. And maybe they thought, with us out there, because we weren't out there as much. I mean, we don't have a full-time Parks Department. It was Rob and 3 or 4 other guys out there doing the fields. And there's some things that we didn't know about going into this lease as well, things that we had to learn, such as watering the dirt every day for 6 hours because there's no sprinkler system in the dirt. We didn't know that because the recline complex, flip a switch and it waters the dirt for you. So there were some challenges on our part too. A lot of it is safety, and I appreciate the comment about the city doing what they can to make it right for us. I feel like the Parks Department and the Police Department's really working hard to try to make it better. But now, with the safety and with some of the logistical problems too, we feel like it'd be better for us just to maintain Rick Klein, and we're doing some big stuff out there. We're looking forward to many more big things out there, and then renting additional fields. And like one of our other board members said, when the time comes when maybe we go and say, hey, Parks Department, maybe we'd like to take this complex over down. Maybe we can revisit that, but at this time we would sure appreciate kind of getting that amendment done and going back to just keeping the Rick Klein complex. That's all I have.
Thank you, guys.
Rob,
thank you very much.
You and I talked yesterday about this, and one thing you brought up is, like you said, that with Parks Department being in and out of that, y'all would have to hire someone to be there the entire time, and so financially, it just doesn't make sense for your organization to have somebody.
We were struggling, which we've done. Where our 2015, when we had to step in and make sure draft recreational sports didn't leave this town, we were in the black that first year. Our joke is about $130. We've done way better than that since then, and we're working hard to continue. And there's some things we're doing programming-wise. I called Don because he's a baseball guy, and he and I go back on that. Just some things, and we're going to have lunch soon, hopefully. But I want to
I'd like to visit with each of you guys soon about some things we're doing as our organization to try to give the game back to the kids. And I don't want to go down that path too much today, but we're doing some neat things, and we're going to continue to grow. Our numbers are going up, but there hasn't been one season since we started that we haven't increased 10% registration numbers. Our numbers, I can show you numbers. Our kids that are playing this fall, we have more kids playing this fall than we had our very first year in the spring, which spring usually is double your numbers. So we got a lot of kids coming back out saying, hey, I want to come try baseball. I don't have to worry about going to Dallas every weekend at 6 years old with my kid. So we're doing some neat things.
So we want to, your organization is to provide youth baseball for everybody in the draft, which means they don't have to sign up for a select team or try out for a select team. It means everybody gets to play, which is what your organization does and does a great job. And so we're just trying to provide a safe place for that to occur. And then also maintenance and that type deal. So like you said, maybe we abandon this now, but in the future, if we improve the safety, maybe whether it's cameras or whatever we do to improve the park safety, then maybe we can revisit, down the road if we correct these. That kind of okay.
Well, that park, like all of our parks, are so important to us as a community and to businesses and what have you. I think Michael Kashub and his office is working hard to try to get those things fixed.
Yeah.
So, and I hope that park gets fixed. That's the center of our town. So.
Any further questions, Council?
So, Michael, so when did this agreement come into place?
It took effect January 31st of this year.
Okay.
To Councilman Sherlin's point, one of the things we are working on currently is putting up cameras in the park. So that is something we've been working with APD to tie those cameras into their real-time crime center. So that is something that we're working on currently to get those cameras in place.
Okay. And then did you adjust they took over the maintenance of those, so we no longer had that money in the budget for the city budget. So that money, if this happens, then now we're going to have to begin making up for that, the upkeep.
No, one of the things that we did was reallocated those staff to other positions or in other places. So we'll be able to reassign them back to that complex to make sure it's taken care of.
But something else won't get done. We're not adding staff. We were not doing it. I know we reallocated staff, but now this comes back on the city to do that.
Yeah, we've got adequate staff in the athletics part that can take on the maintenance.
Well, I guess the thing is, and to me, we've got a symptom. This is a symptom. This is the outcome. But we've got the problem that's occurring, which is not just a problem to you. It's a problem to the community. And I guess I guess we can talk about, I don't know if this has come before council before. It's the first time that I'm hearing of this. But, this is a problem that affects the entire community, not just you. And what can we do to help alleviate this problem for the entire community? I would like for you guys to be able to stay there, to have those fields. You're helping us. Even if we can't absorb the work without increasing expense, it's like I don't know. I've heard a little bit, but what can we, I don't know, do you play year-round, or is this the off-season, or when does it start back up?
So we don't play year-round, but we do play 2 seasons. We play spring and fall.
Okay.
So we're in our fall season now. Then we'll start back up. Registration will start in January, so we'll start back up in March.
Okay, so you're playing currently?
We are currently, yes.
And when does that season end?
The second, weather permitting, as far as the second week in November.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I guess I would be. I guess if and the lease was a 10-year lease.
Correct.
I guess I don't know. I'd like for maybe us to have a chance to do something to correct this problem.
Well, and I want to also still say that it wasn't just the security safety part, Councilman. It was some other things that we didn't know about going into the contract, such as, and again, we're just looking for the amendment on it. We want to continue doing the work at the other complex, but hiring a full-time staff member to sit out there and water the dirt so we can play on it those 2 months. Mm-hmm. Michael's department had that covered with the person they had out there on staff. They would just turn the water on and move around with it, but we just don't have that. We just don't have that ability. We could figure it out, I'm sure, but it's a logistical issue as well, not just the safety part too.
Okay.
So.
No, I appreciate that, but in the meantime, mean, no, if we got a safety issue in the park,
Yeah, that
nobody
issue's-
can use the park, or nobody's going to want to use the park.
Well, I will say I'll give you, our oldest is a school teacher, and they were going to have an event in that park, and they chose to take that event, I think to Thompson, no, to Meta Park, because of just some of the concerns with that park. So it's not new. I mean, there's been issues in that park for quite some time. I don't think it's been as bad as it's been the last couple of years, and I don't know why. It seems like the last couple of years the kids are doing different things. I don't know. I raised 4 children, and none of them would have done some of the things those kids out there have done. So, but there are issues. But it's not just a safety; it's a logistical thing too. And I think that we're doing a really good job at Rick Klein, and I would like to, lease city fields, and then at another later time maybe come back and revisit additional if needed.
Michael, are there other parks that are having issues to this level of significance, or does it seem to be John Stiff where most of this has occurred?
We see a lot of vandalism, graffiti across the board, but I think the persistence of it in that park has been greater than we've seen in other parks. And I think it's different types of crime, and we know we've talked with APD about different types of crime. But I would say right now that is the most persistent for just ongoing issues. We have had vandalism. We actually have one full-time park employee that's all they do is graffiti and vandalism, just going around town cleaning stuff up. So, but we are working with city managers on some other options. Obviously, cameras is the first step, looking at other solutions down the road, like maybe lighting, other supervision options in terms of working with other departments. So we're looking at options. We just know that right now it's an issue. So.
One option that I do think is well worth looking into, in addition to the lighting, would be perhaps our city marshal's office taking on that role. I believe that if we can get them spun up and they can continue to hire, those peace officers are geared for something like that. It's right in their wheelhouse. I think we would need to look at funding that and maybe trying to grow that department. I don't know if that's 1 or 2 positions or whatever we'd look at, but these are small criminal elements that turn into bigger problems if we don't address them. And so the answer here is not to just amend the contract and move on. That's what we need to do for you. But what we need to do for our community is to address the problem of a criminal element that we have in that park. And so I think that, staff should hear us say that this council would like to look at all the options, including something like the city marshal as maybe an outcome and an effect. Any further questions for these gentlemen here as far as it pertains to this amendment? Appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you, Mr. Kashuba.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, I would ask if we'd like to move forward with this, we've got a motion.
Well, I move to approve the amendment to the lease agreement for Rick Klein Baseball Complex and Southwest Softball Complex and John Stiff Memorial Park as presented on the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's a 5-0 vote. I'm going to take item 10N out of order. And so if we can get down to N there, Ms. City Secretary, just because of time, we have some people that need to leave. And this is a nomination for Prad. And so, Ms. City Secretary, if you'll come out and go ahead and walk us through this one, we'll get this one done.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We discussed with you at the last meeting this process on electing the appointed members to the Prad Board. That's the Potter Randall Appraisal District. And this slide's just a quick reminder. Today we are talking about the 5 appointed positions. We as a taxing authority get votes in appointing these 5 members. This screen just shows you a quick reminder on eligibility. The biggest eligibility requirement to serve on these boards is that you live in the county for the board you're serving on and have resided there for 2 years. The Potter County Board roster is on the screen right now. Today, council may nominate anywhere from 1 to 5 individuals for both the Potter County and the Randall County boards. The names highlighted in orange up here, Zachary Plummer, Cindy Spinell, John Coffey, Mitzi Wade are all willing to serve again if you wish to nominate any of them. And for Randall County, Diane Thurman, Robin Patterson, Bob Lindsay, and Ginger White would be willing to serve again if you wish to nominate any of them. And so at this time, I would open it to questions. As far as the motion goes for this, Mayor, if you're amiable to this, if you will lay out who y'all want to nominate through your discussions, I can repeat that back to you, and then a council member could say, so moved.
Real good. I understand there's some language that needs to be stated correctly, and so let's start with a discussion. You're in Potter County right there, so we need one. And did you have anyone that put forth a request to be nominated for Potter County?
We didn't have any through the city secretary's office. And you can nominate from 1 to 5. If you want to renominate the ones willing to serve again, you can. Or you could pick any other from 1 to 5 names.
Okay. Do you happen to know what county Dick Ford resides in?
I do not.
Okay.
I had a person contact me last night that was interested.
Yeah. Who?
Thomas Warren III.
Okay. So,
he was interested in, he lives in Potter County.
Okay. So as a discussion, we have Thomas Warren III. I believe Dick Ford resides in Potter County.
We are trying to look up his address right now to confirm
I think
that.
he's like 15th, 16th Street, unless he's moved. So I would like to nominate Dick Ford for Potter County, Brad. And if he doesn't reside, I'll withdraw. Or if he doesn't wish to serve in that capacity. And I have no problem with your nomination as well. Any other nominations?
I mean, other than what's on the list, no.
Okay. Which one was elected again? I mean, I know Sherry Ayler's an elected position, but there was another one that was elected.
At this time, there are not any actual elected officials. So we will, I say we loosely, Prad will hold an election in May of 2024 and add 3 elected positions to each of these boards.
And we can nominate 5.
So, you can nominate up to 5. So right now, I'm hearing Dick Ford and Thomas Warren III. So if there were anybody from this list that's currently serving that y'all would want to nominate, we could add them as well.
Yeah, I would nominate John Coffey.
Right. I believe that Zach Plummer probably has been there and is the chair, would probably not need the nomination from our board because he's going to have probably some support. So I would ask Ms. City Secretary if Cindy Spinell, John Coffey, Mitzi Wade, along with our other 2, would be something that you would recommend, knowing that you're going to have a vacancy there.
If that's what council wants to go with, I think that's a good decision.
So, council, y'all have definitely nothing against Zach Plummer. I think he does a fine job. I just think he probably will retain that spot regardless of these nominations. And then it allows us to move forward with those 3 plus the 2 as stated.
So Zach Plummer would remain?
No, describe the process on the different taxing entities that nominate.
So I think what the mayor is thinking is that there may be another entity that is a taxing authority that would probably put Zach Plummer's name forward and nominate him. So if no one does, he would not be on the ballot. But if another taxing entity nominates him to remain on, then he would show up. And keep in mind, you're making nominations today. We will get a ballot back with however many names come from all of the combined taxing entities to vote on November 14th.
So to clarify, if we don't nominate Mr. Plummer, it doesn't mean he won't be on your list. I find it highly likely that he would be on your list to vote for. I just look at, say, Mitzi Wade. If you don't nominate her, she may not be on that list, and you may not have an opportunity to vote for her. And just because we vote it doesn't mean that they get it. So it's a combined vote from, what, is it just us and Potter in this one, or is there another county?
There are between 9 and 12
Oh, wow.
entities.
Entities
Between
all
the
in.
school districts, the county, the water district.
Yeah, so we get 5 nominations, and each district gets a different number.
Yes, they get up to a certain number.
So we get 5, and what you're saying is the 5 are taken with Dick Ford and Thomas Warren and the 3 that you just mentioned.
And you don't have to nominate
You can
5.
do up to 5. So
Up to
yeah,
5.
Right.
if we did everyone that wishes to serve again except for Mr. Plummer, and then add Dick Ford and Thomas Warren III, that would be your.
We feel like Mr.
max.
Plummer will be nominated from another entity, is what you're saying.
I can't speak to that. He's been on there a while, so.
Yeah.
Well, I find it difficult not to nominate somebody that's willing to serve, and we're throwing somebody else out that we don't even know wants to serve. That's my issue.
That is true in the way of, like, we're trying to put forward names because we feel like it, we should. And then the name that I'm putting forward in Mr. Ford is because he did reach out to me and said, hey, I'd like to serve. He did not request this. He requested 3 other committees. And I know that he's can be a very valuable asset with what he does and his expertise in different businesses. So I could withdraw my nomination for Dick Ford if you guys wanted to move forward with these 4, and we could nominate Mr. Ford for another board in November.
I mean, I would feel more comfortable doing that if we have the chairman that's willing to serve again. I would hate for us to make an assumption that somebody else would put him out there when he's done it and has been doing it for 11 years, probably doing a good job. Or even Thomas Warren, did he state that he wants to? Because I know that he's running for an elected position. Is that correct?
I asked that question. Yep.
So he's running for an elected position, but he also wants to serve on this board.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, he might have to resign, but.
From the board that we're just nominating him to.
Correct.
It's never easy at the city, is it?
Catch-22.
I'm trying to make this easy, and it just seems like there's just a wrench being
Not
thrown in
helping
everything. Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I would like to nominate Zach Plummer, but if we're locking in names.
No, I'm going to withdraw my nomination on Mr. Ford because he didn't ask for this specifically. And so I'll bring him back to the other 3 that he looked for. So I think what you're hearing us say is we would nominate T3 plus these 4.
Okay, so I've got those 5 down. So if we can move to Randall County now, have that discussion, then I'll repeat everything for your motion since it's one motion.
So we only get.
Does that sound okay?
Well, now you're going to.
Randall?
We only get Potter and Randall.
5 per.
Correct.
5 per.
5 per.
Yeah, up to 5 per.
Okay.
You just have to reside in the county.
Yeah.
I'm lost.
So
Okay.
let me forward you to Randall County board roster, the 4 highlighted on here or the 4 willing to serve again, if you wish to nominate them. And then we did have one individual for this board, Vance Snyder, that had emailed some interest, and we provided him with some more information on it.
So I have 2 that have asked for to serve on this, Vance Snyder and Kirk Hude. And if you need me to spell that for you, I'll need to look in my phone.
I might, but we can do that after the
You know who
fact.
he
How do
is.
you pronounce it? Hude?
Hude. So it's Chudej.
Okay.
And so those 2, I think, would make great add-tos to this, but then that would mean we would need to work through the other 4. Do I have any other nominations from council?
I don't have any.
No. Okay. So honestly, I'd hate to weigh in on the other 4. So I would not weigh against any one of the other 4. I would just look at it in the way of maybe who's been there the least amount of time, versus the long. I mean, they're all pretty new. I tell you what I would propose is I would propose just to nominate 2 for this and not to do the full 5.
We can
Because
do
I
that.
don't have a
Yeah, same. I don't.
I don't have a winning hand on the other 4.
I'm good.
The only person I know on this list is Ginger White.
Mm-hmm.
I think she would be someone that, I mean, of course, she's newer to that, so.
So I think I'd like to nominate my two, and Councilman Simpson would like to nominate Mrs. White.
Yes.
And do I have any other nominations? Would you mind repeating?
Absolutely. So for the Potter County Appraisal District Board, we would be looking at nominating Zachary Plummer, John Coffey, Cindy Spinell, Mitzi Wade, and Thomas Warren III. And for the Randall County Appraisal District Board, you would look at nominating Vance Snyder, Kirk
Houday.
Very
good.
Thank you, and Ginger White.
Any further discussion, council? I would entertain a motion as stated.
Second.
Well, no, I would ask for a motion if you would so move.
I'd make a motion that we approve the list as presented.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on item 10N? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. That one passes. We're going to go back to item 10B, Reserve Police Force, and we do have our chief here. If you don't mind coming up and telling us about this, sir.
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me here today. I'm happy to report that we have 4 additional officers who had retired or left the police department under honorable circumstances that are asking to come back to volunteer as reserve officers. And the state law requires that the city council approve the reserve officers. It's interesting that they don't require that for our full-time officers who are getting paid, but they do for reserves. So this is kind of a formality, but as a reminder, our police reserve force, we have 5 officers already on that. They were appointed back in the early part of this summer, approved by council back in April. So this adds to that. Once these officers, if they're approved by council, then we'll move forward with making sure they have all the educational requirements for police officers and everything that they need. Once we have that, then we'll have an appointment ceremony and have the municipal court judge swear them in. Reserve officers for the police department have the same powers as any other police officer, but obviously they're volunteers. We're asking them to work a minimum of 40 hours per year so that they're contributing to the department in exchange for us retaining their certification as police officers. They're not meant to replace any officer positions. They're not meant to take any overtime jobs away or anything like that. We don't allow them to work any off-duty jobs, but we do ask them to help us, and especially in a time where we have a crisis. For example, when we had the situation with a bombing last summer, we had to sit on that scene for several days, and that's a fairly simple task. But it's an important task. In fact, we had some perimeter officers that made an arrest during that. But that would be something where we might ask our reserve force, hey, can you help us out? We've got a lot of shifts to cover, and we've expended our resources and asked them to come in and help with that. Other times, they may ride partners on patrol. We may ask them to do an investigation. We could ask them to do some training. We've got some names on our list that have some considerable experience and both leadership and technical skills, and so we may ask them to do some training as well. So the names we have are Justin Graham, Mike Reed, who recently retired, Doug Harrington, and this other one may look familiar, Jason Reelsberger, who left us to move up in management here at the city. I recommend that all of those individuals be appointed or be approved for appointment as reserve police officers for the city of Amarillo.
We were curious how Mr. Riddlesberger got his background check through. Kind of understand he may have. No, I'm kidding. So he's our community development lead director, does a fantastic job. So we love the fact that this is a lighter item, that it is something that we really enjoy, that these gentlemen are willing to come back and serve in this capacity, that they still want to be policemen out there. And the morale that builds and shows, we love it. I hope it flows over into other departments.
Yes, sir.
So really appreciate the presentation. Questions for the chief, gentlemen?
Nothing for me.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
I move to approve item 10B as presented in the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on item 10B. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Item 10C, we have, are we going to do our city marshal? Mr. Diaz, are you coming forward? You want to bring Howard with you? Okay, Howard will. Okay, Mr. Howard Hall coming forward from Building Safety. Might have the most experience over there in codes and standards, so a good person for us to ask a lot of questions to. If there's anything you want to know, I'm sure he can tell us here today and won't even need to look it up. So you have items.
No pressure.
No pressure. You have items that are related to item 10C all the way through.
10.
What'd you say, K?
10L.
10L. Okay. So do you mind doing an overview of all of these in the way in which we're bringing forth these different codes? We'll vote on them one at a time. But we would perhaps gain a little bit better understanding of your department and why this is an overview and how it functions, and then why it's important to move forward with this, maybe ISO rating, things like that.
Yes, this is pretty typical. The International Code Council, which was adopted by the state of Texas, requires municipalities within the state to utilize this type of code if they so choose. The state has minimum standards that they brought in, and what that is it's not just the International Code Council codes, it's the year version. The codes are updated once every 3 years by the International Code Council, and a lot of them are just procedural or administrative changes. They may move different things around in the book. A lot of the things that we do to amend those are simply that. We tailor that book or those books to the City of Amarillo previously adopted ordinances. And we adjust those ordinances from time to time just to coincide with those updates by the Code Council. We also have the National Electric Code, also known as the NFPA 70, which is a different animal. It's one of the most important codes, I feel like, because it does deal directly with safety and electricity. And as we all know, so many fires begin with an electrical problem. So we also look at updating that, which is a year off in cycle. It does an every 3-year cycle, but it's 1 year different than the building codes and associated codes, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, swimming pool and spa code, the International Existing Building Code. Those different codes are under the ICC banner, but the NFPA 70 is pretty special because it deals with that electrical protection that we need so well. There are a lot of advances in technology, and as we well know, everything's controlled with electricity. So we want to stay abreast of the most recent technologies, and that involves a lot of the construction items because we're having to install infrastructure for electric cars, computer systems, video systems, things that change and upgrade, as you all well know, very quickly. So we're looking at that. The International Fire Code also, there were probably more changes in the fire code than there was any other code because we were at the 2012 version. Technologies and control panels in commercial situations, communications with the system and our emergency responders have all upgraded. And those things we want to stay relevant and be able to allow our local contractors and people to install those systems and use them effectively. And this really is, it's about staying safe in our community, creating a safe environment for us to occupy. And most of it is regulation that has been in place for quite some time. There haven't been any real radical changes in the building codes other than to allow for these upgrades and advances in technology. And we, in the department, we try to regulate ourselves, and we do that with the International Existing Building Code. That limits us. We can't just come in if you want to change your water heater and your plumber applies for a permit. We can't come in and say, oh, well, you're going to have to do your windows too. We have to go by the existing building code. We can't, every time the code updates, we're not going to go through the city and try to upgrade every little thing. It's not tenable. So that international existing building code limits our authority in those things that we can require. And we try to temper that within our department because we're here to serve people. We're not here to prevent people. So.
No, I think that's good. I kind of want to steer for just a minute
Sure.
because I know kind of being a contractor, like any good contractor, we love to complain about codes. And anytime you change one, because you just changed it on me last week, right? And so I guess what I would say, and let you back me up on this, you know, if we have a code that hadn't been updated since 2012, we have a large adjustment for our contractors and our public. You know, private homeowners, but business owners, landlords, across the gamut. Now we're going to a 2021 or a 2022, whatever the upgrade is. So now we have a large change that's harder to digest. So it tends to be better unless we see a code like the energy code, for one, that we're not updating. So we're leaving the International Energy Code at the 2015 for as long as we physically possibly can, because I think myself personally and a lot of other contractors, we don't find that to be reasonable, buildable, or efficient in the way of the additional costs on the front end have very, very little return on investment on the monthly efficiencies that we enjoy a lot of good efficiencies in heating and air, lighting, window quality, insulation. The things that they're now asking for don't necessarily, you know, make sense. So
It's not geared towards safety.
it's not geared towards safety. It is something that is a different animal. Like our fire code, though, much more important to stay current on and can save a life. And so when we as contractors have to deal with, okay, well, that's kind of a pain for me to need to go do that, but I see the benefit in that for my community and my customer, I'm happy to do it, sir. You know, versus having a building official come out and say, well, yeah, I don't know why you got to do it, but we're going to make you do it. So we are eliminating as many of those as we can. Now, we don't know everything that's in every one of these codes in the new application of every building project that could happen over the next couple of years. So we still reserve the right to have a construction advisory council that hears those type of items. And if we had something that was implemented or updated here that was going to be a chronic issue for our building community, the appropriate way to handle that would be to bring it back to the Construction Advisory Council and say, look, you're now asking me to duct tape all of, you know, my windows shut, and we should not do that, and it's a crazy, stupid code. So would you take it out? There's a process and a procedure for going and amending some of those items. Would you mind speaking to that just real quick?
Absolutely. The Construction Advisory and Appeals Commission, they regulate us. They make the decisions on these codes and the amendments. We've had 70-plus meetings over the last year and a half with the Construction Advisory and Appeals Commission, who are citizens who are chosen from the general public in different industries, insurance representatives, commercial contractors, residential contractors, an electrical contractor, I think Richard Banco. We have all types from all walks. And then we have one individual who's not involved in construction whatsoever. So we have a broad spectrum of people and opinions, and they are what guide us. So we provide them the technical information in our interpretation of those things. We access all the available information that we possibly can to give you a broad view so you can make the right informed decisions, and that the commission can make the right decision before they bring it and send it to council through our department. I'm simply a conduit.
Well said. Questions for Mr. Hall, gentlemen, or questions on any particular item on these codes? If we'd like to, we can pull any of them out and discuss them at length. But if not, what we'd be choosing to do is kind of move forward with the adoption of each individual code the way, you know, it's presented on the agenda, but we would only have the one presentation here. So it's kind of your opportunity to ask him any questions.
I'd just like to ask, you've gone through these, is it common sense stuff?
Many of the things are very common sense. Some of these things in the code haven't changed literally for decades. We're talking stud spacing, vertical support. The people that, on the Code Council, that put together the books, and that's through a democratic process. Different people go. Johnny Shell, our building official, is currently at the ICC conference, and I think they're going through some of the things for the next code version that's coming up, which is actually the 2023 that they put out, 3-year cycles. As Cole said earlier, it is good to stay abreast of these things. We feel like that once every 6 years or so is probably a good time span. It's easy to go from one code to 2023. We'd be in constant change and constant flux, which really, a lot of times, unless there's something that's critical to safety, I don't think that would necessarily serve us. It does whenever we're talking about the electrical code or the fire code. But a lot of the things in the code have remained stairs. They've remained consistent. My home was built. It's the old McAfee Ranch home that exists outside of town here. It's been where it's been, and it was built in 1905. The stairs meet the current code. So a lot of things are unchanging. They are common sense, and I'll advocate for them. The one thing that I would like to say about our department and about our staff and the way we try to approach these things is we want to try to help you find a way, not use it as a prevention from you doing what you would like to do. We would like to help you with to help you make informed decisions based on the information. And that's literally what these are. They're highly technical manuals that do change and flux with time, but they're not necessarily overly burdensome.
One other thing I'd like to ask is, Mayor brought up code changed on him a week and a half ago, evidently. When a permit's been issued and it's issued on this date, why can't the builder or whatever go through the codes that were present at that date instead of all of a sudden halfway through the project he finds out, well.
I'm glad you brought that up, Mr.
Pull that microphone up to you if you would.
I'm glad you brought that up. If you permit that under the previous codes, in other words, you come in, you apply for this permit, and we issue it under the current, on that day, it hasn't been adopted by the council, so we are still at the previous version. If we permitted under that version, we're going to inspect it under that version.
Okay.
We're not going to come in and try to wipe that slate and say, oh, no, you got to catch up. That's really not good business.
I understand.
Any further questions, council?
So it looks like we're passing 10 separate ordinances today, I think.
Yes, sir. If you'd like for me to name them, I'll be happy to.
I'll pass at this point. I'd just like to ask you, I'd like to name one of them. So if you look at this list of 10, which one of these things, or which one of the 10s do you think you would say, this is the first one I'm going to hear about? This is going to be
largest change.
The one that's going to.
The one that changed the most?
Yeah, and that will cause disruption potentially because of having to make that change.
I would say the lightning rod is the International Energy Conservation Code.
Okay.
And we're not changing that very much. The previous ordinance and previous building officials a few years ago had put a timeline in the amendment in the ordinance, and that held the values of insulation required for a residential home at those current levels, and then at a certain date they would change to something else. Well, us remaining at the 2015, we had to eliminate those dates, and we will now go by those tabular answers unless a contractor would like to submit an alternative method to his energy approach, which we will accept happily. HERS rating or things like that. We want to help you build a better product if that's what you so choose. If you want to use that as a selling point for your home, we're happy to do that and accept those things. But I would say the energy code is our most, that's the lightning rod. The other codes, contractors are used to. They've been under these codes for decades. So literally, The new guys, they get a little bit passionate about it sometimes because they didn't know the books are this thick. But we're always there to try to help educate them. But the lightning rod, it's energy.
And then so if if the mayor's going to know about this because he's up here approving it, so he's in the loop. But how do we educate people on this? Is it just when they show up and they say, "Here, this is a new code," or
well, we do our best. We provide links to the code books. There's actually free versions online. In years past, there weren't. We answer any question from anybody at any time. We're here to serve people. That's what we do. I've been in this business for 17 years and in construction for 40. I'm here to serve.
Yeah. Well, I just wonder, I mean, does the construction community as a whole know that this is about to change, or will?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They have been prepared over the last couple of years. In fact, some of them are getting a little impatient.
I don't know that I would say that. I'm squirming in my chair up here because we're talking about energy code, and it's what I want to do is to talk about we're looking for ways as council where we can have a performance design where I, as the building expert, along with my owner who owns that property and has the right to say what they want, I can show that my design performs to your tabulations in your book. So it allows me to work very common sensely and logically through construction and put out a high product that's very efficient without getting kind of overly burdensome in the IECC. And so this is something that we're trying to implement. We believe that this will be something that will greatly help us if these codes get mandatorily raised from, say, 2015 to 2021 or whatever.
We'll absolutely work to the council's wishes. That's what we're here to do. You're elected by the people, and we work for those very same people.
So we appreciate what you've done.
We will work with you on any initiative that the council so chooses.
We appreciate what you've done so far. Questions on this side?
Nope. I just have one. I mean, I guess where I'm at is, where do we fall in line with what the state adopts? Is there kind of a where do we fall with that?
If the council chooses to approve these and they adopt these ordinances, we will actually be ahead of the state in every category except, we'll be ahead of the state in every category. The National Electric Code, the state has recently looked at adopting the National Electric Code as it comes out. I don't know that that's necessarily a great idea. That leaves our codes, it takes that out from under your authority as the council and the Construction Advisory and Appeals Commission's authority and oversight, and places it with somebody else.
Yeah.
So just accepting what the National Electric Code or the NFPA says we need to do in the electric code, although we made very few changes because it is a highly technical thing and technology does advance, we would still like the opportunity, or I recommend that the council and the city retain the opportunity to review those prior to their adoption in this locality.
Councilman Simpson, did I cut you off on any other
I'm
questions?
good.
Okay.
Good.
Just wanted to make sure you had opportunity to get to all of them. So I think at this time, we appreciate your presentation, and we should be comfortable in moving forward with these 10 items.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. We are going to need to motion, second, and vote on each individual item. So I would just tell you guys to get after it.
All right.
Go ahead.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8082 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's a 5-0 vote on item 10C. Item 10D is a consideration of the ordinance for the swimming pool and spa code.
Okay. Cool. I move to adopt ordinance 8083 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10D passes with a 5-0 vote. Moving on to item 10E, amending the municipal code for International Fire Code.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8084 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 10F, International Mechanical Code.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8085 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 10F passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 10G, International Residential Code.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8086 as presented in the agenda.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10G passes with a 5-0 vote. Miss Johnny, we doing good over there?
Doing great.
Okay. Moving on to item 10H. Let me get here. International Energy Conservation Code.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8087 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 10I, International Fuel Gas Code.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8088 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10I passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 10J, just a couple more. International Existing Building Code.
I move to adopt ordinance number 8089 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10J passes with a 5-0 vote. I believe this is our last one. Item 10K, National Electrical Code.
Move to adopt ordinance number 8090 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10K passes with a 5-0 vote.
One more, Mayor.
Is there one more?
One more.
Oh, dang it, the plumbing code. It's always last, isn't it? It's the most important code. Item 10L, International Plumbing Code.
Move to adopt ordinance number 8091 as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 10L passes with a 5-0 vote. Okay, now we're done. Yes, sir. Please come back up.
As Andrew pointed out, I would like for y'all to know that if and when adopted, after the next reading or vote, whatever's required by law, we wouldn't start enforcing those codes until after January of the following year. So just to let you know, so we wouldn't start enforcing these until January 1st, 2024, or at the suggestion of the council and/or Construction Advisory and Appeals Commission. Thank you.
Real good. Appreciate you clarifying that. So I think we're good to move on to item 10M. We took N out of order, but 10M is Mr. Jacob Diaz. If you would come forward and go ahead and get us ran through this one, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Jacob Diaz, City Marshal. I'm happy to present to you the first reading of Ordinance 8092. Its purpose is to update the general standards and sanitary requirements for massage establishments and to require a license to operate a massage establishment or provide massage services. Our goal is to provide a safe environment for the clients and customers of these massage establishments as well as our community. We have 5 initial objectives. First one being to identify all massage establishments within the city, primarily the illegal establishments. Second objective is to process applications and issue business licenses. Conduct initial and annual safety inspections is our third objective. And if approved, we'd like to begin accepting applications after the second reading and then begin enforcement on January 1st of 2024. Additionally, this chapter of the code has not been updated since 1986, so this ordinance will get us aligned with current standards, industry, language, standards, and practices. This ordinance will allow City Marshal's office to administer this program. However, it will also allow both City Marshal's office and APD to enforce the ordinance. I recommend approval, and if approved, we'll work with the Office of Innovation and Engagement to disseminate this information to the public in our community.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. I know we had a discussion item on this, and now we're bringing forward this ordinance.
Yes, sir.
I know it's pretty clean cut in what we're doing there. It is an update, and the intention is to enforce it. So
Yes,
we're encouraged with the City Marshal's office and everything you guys are able to do, and we think this will have a good outcome for our community.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any questions for Mr. Diaz?
What kind of fees are we going to charge for these?
Great question. The initial fee for a license is $250 for the establishment, and then $50 for each person that's operating in there.
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Mr. Diaz. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we accept ordinance 8092 as stated.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on item 10M. Any further discussion on this one, gentlemen? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. To remind myself, we already took item 10N out of order, so we will move on to item 10O. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir. Oh, thank you, Johnny. Perfect. So as District Chief Havlick mentioned during the public comment, this has been an item that's been worked on for many years and discussed for many years. I was only here for a portion of it in a different role, but as Mayor mentioned, once I was made interim, this was kind of a high priority for me to try and bring forward and address. Before I go over the details of the agreement and kind of the logistics of it, I did want to say thank you to Lieutenant Todd Peden. He's the president of the association, and his executive board. They've been great to work with. Really, it was a very quick process when you look back on it. We had just a couple of meetings to kind of highlight some of the challenges we wanted to address, and then Todd and I worked through just emails and text back and forth and got this prepared for y'all to consider today. So just covering the highlights of the agreement. So part of what helped get us to this point is we do have a city marshal's office now that's got two different roles that they've been working. They've had the fire side, and they've got code enforcement, massage parlors, all these other things we want them to tackle. So the benefit of that is that office will stay where it is and take on new challenges, and we will basically be recreating the fire marshal's office as a division in the Amarillo Fire Department, is what this agreement will set up. That really brings everything back under one umbrella under the fire department. That includes the fire prevention, fire safety education, code inspections, fire investigation, and arson investigations, which are criminal investigations done by licensed peace officers. They will be authorized increase in the department by one deputy chief that will oversee this division of the department. It will include 3 captains, 2 lieutenants, 2 drivers, and 1 firefighter that will work within that division. The positive to how we've had this discussion, we've found the staff that we've got that have been doing this work for many years and are experts in their field, that we've got basically half of the city marshal's office that was working on that will go back to the Amarillo Fire Department and basically be grandfathered in as civil service to maintain those positions and that level of expertise that will be beneficial for the community since they've been doing that role. And then we'll still have some that remain in the city marshal's office that will continue down that path. The benefit there is that we are not, for the benefit of the community, we're not starting from scratch. We've got employees that have done the job, can help train the fire department personnel that join the team and work through that process. So that'll make sure we maintain that continuity of service moving forward. as part of this agreement, and also just touching on the next item, that's a separate vote, but this will end the lawsuit that really drove this discussion forward. That's the Michael Brandt Stennett lawsuit. So he will be promoted to one of the newly created captain positions. So this is not a listed position or a tested position. It was created to address this lawsuit. So it's a brand new position that he'll fill on the fire suppression division side of the Amarillo Fire Department, and this will be made retroactive to January 30th, 2016. Then he will have the seniority as a captain based on that promotion date. So that's one consideration as part of this agreement, and his settlement is basically stating the same thing, as well as a small portion of back pay related to that we negotiated. And then another key point of this was really a one-off meet and confer negotiation to deal with this one outstanding topic. So there are obviously other items that the association and the city side would like to discuss in a different agreement. So part of this agreement also mentions that we will, in good faith, agree to start negotiations for a successor agreement on or before January 31st, 2024. So that is the highlights. I'm happy to try and answer any questions, or Todd said he'd be more than happy to come up and talk, but not really. But if you have any questions for Todd, he'd be happy to come up as well. So this was definitely a good negotiation. I think we brought forth a good agreement for the council to consider.
Questions or comments for our city manager?
No, we just appreciate you addressing this and getting it resolved. It seems like you said, it was surprisingly easy. I don't know if I'm going to use that word, but we appreciate y'all taking that lead and taking care of it and doing what needs to be done.
Yes, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Anything from this side?
Good.
Okay. Well, just so Mr. Peden can stay in his seat and he doesn't feel like he has to come forward, I would just say it's a good example of when you get good leaders in the same room, how well we can work together. And so really good leaders on our association side, with the intention of what's best for the organization as a whole, and how do you work alongside of your staff and your city. Really good leadership from our chiefs, and being willing to take the phone call and say, look, we can perform. There's nothing you're going to tell us that you need, that you want, that we can't do. and that is their job, to adapt and overcome. And so I think it's a good example. I think it sets a better example for public safety for our citizens in the way in which AECC, emergency management, APD, all of our public safety, including public health, that we as a council will strive to listen and bring people together to get around that table and overcome these challenges that we've been hung up on, sometimes literally for years. And so this is a win. It's a pretty big win. Even in the budget, creating a new captain position, well, we also created a new appointed chief. If I'm saying it correctly, I think I am. And then we have our fire marshal, and at the same time, we have our city marshal, who I know, I appreciate his humility and is willing to work and be a team player, to not knee-jerk and feel like something was being taken away from him, but that he's being asked to perform just in a little different manner, but ultimately for the good of the organization, the good of the community. So this is a good example of leaders coming together and sitting down and listening and working towards a common goal. And so, Mr. City Manager, you did a fantastic job with it. So I wish we could take credit. We don't get to. This one's really on your shoulders. And so we would just say good job, and we appreciate you.
Sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further, council? Okay, if we had a motion.
I move we approve resolution number 10-10-23-2 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second on item 10O. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item passes with a 5-0 vote. Item 10P is the settlement and release agreement. Thank you, guys. Item 10P is the settlement and release agreement, so a little bit of legal work here. We've had our presentation. Do we have any further questions on this part of this this agenda item?
No.
Okay, would ask for a motion on item 10P.
I move to approve item 10P as presented in the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from place one, a second from place two. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item passes with a 5-0 vote. And I appreciate all you guys for being here today. It's nice to come in here and get some work done. That was a pretty thick agenda. I would ask for a motion to adjourn, and we will close this meeting.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
You're adjourned. Thank you guys for being here.